heart that there's always been some grand design, that there's a master plan in mind. When you feel it in your soul, that there's a story and it must be told, that every rhyme, it has a reason why, that no matter what, you still must try. Just close your eyes. I will take your hand. I'll be right by your side, holding you within my arms forever. It's so much better when you dream. Oh, when you dream. When it feels so far away that the night won't bring a brighter day, that there's something there behind the scenes that tries to still the joy life brings. And when you feel me close to you, that kindred spirit that is shared by two, that thing that says keep moving on, that voice that whispers please be strong. Just close your eyes.
Hey. It is an unstoppable day. It is your boy, Terrance, the Unstoppable Coach Leftridge, with another episode of the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrance Leftridge on a Tuesday night. And you were just listening to the melodic sounds of Loren Harris. Loren, our special guest this evening on the Unstoppable Story Show. So come on in, swipe and share, show our guests some love this evening as we bring them on to the show. He is a life coach. He is an author. He is, as you can see, an accomplished recording artist. But more importantly, he is a man with an unstoppable story. Just an ordinary man doing some great things, sharing a great message. And he's coming on tonight to share his message with you. So thank you guys for coming in. Again, as you come on in, we want you to swipe and share. Put your comments down in the comments. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and we will just hopefully have you join the conversation. And I'm so thankful, again, each and every time we come on the air, I'm so thankful that you decided to spend a little bit of time here on the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. I know you could be anywhere else on a Tuesday night, so I just want to say thank you, and thank you again for being here tonight. Got a great show for you. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest tonight. Our guest, Loren Harris. He is a survivor of the foster care system and an adoptee. He draws upon his upbringing to motivate and inspire others to overcome their obstacles to success and achieving the life that they want. Now, I had the opportunity to just meet Loren this year, and he is a phenomenal person on the inside as well as out, helping people all over the country live their best life, fulfill their dreams, and bring out their message. And, it was a uniform message that spoke to my heart, because that's the same thing that I'm doing with the Unstoppable Story Show, helping people get their message out to the masses so that you can not only change lives, but save lives. And, when you do this long enough, you find yourself around like-minded people. So I am so happy that our paths crossed this year, and I'm looking forward to doing exciting and wonderful things with this gentleman as the year and the years go forward. So let me bring him up from our Unstoppable Green Room up live into the audience so that you guys can see what I already know. It's my friend, Mr. Loren Harris. Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me, Loren?
Hey, I'm here. How you doing?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you. Welcome to the Unstoppable Story Show.
Thank you. I just want to tell you, this is the best green room I have ever been in. Waiting to come on. Those pickles pig feet y'all had were just on point. They were on point. I ate about 10 of them mugs. I'm kidding.
Well, you know. I figured I needed to. We aim to please all our guests. You never know what our guests are going to want. Someone caviar, someone shrimp cocktails, but you said you wanted some pickled pig's feet. Pig feet are unstoppable, and we got you some pickled pig's feet.
We're silly up here tonight. We're silly, y'all.
Hey, we're just having a good time. Ordinary people just kicking it back. But Loren, let me just start out by saying again, thank you, because you are an extremely busy man. You have your hand in a lot of different things, from speaking to the youth across the country, to recording artists, to coach who is helping people get to the next level of their greatness. And so I'm so glad that you were able to take a little bit of time to join us here on the Unstoppable Story Show, so I could publicly thank you for allowing me to be a guest on your show, Bathroom Moments, back in April. Bathroom Moments, for all of you guys who don't know, is Loren's show each and every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Central Time. Yeah. So, Loren, go ahead and just take a moment and formally introduce yourself to my audience.
Well, hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be on the Unstoppable Show. I was actually reaching to get to where Terrance is about 20 months ago when I started my career in this business of influencing and uplifting and edifying and all that comes with it. And so to have you on my show was a big deal. That was a big deal. I think I might have had a suit on underneath my bathrobe that day. It may not have showed. It wasn't a leisure suit, but it was a suit. But anyway, and meeting you at your book signing, and it was a great, great night. And I love what you're doing. I love meeting like-minded people. And so I'm just really honored, to be honest with you. And it's nice to be, on a show in the evening. Because my thing is early in the morning, so it's like opposite ends of the spectrum.
Oh, but yeah. Really I had to look far and wide for that bathrobe when I was on your show.
I know you did. He dug a bathrobe out. Somebody gave him that robe. I think you said they gave it to you for a gift.
Yeah.
And you hadn't worn it since you got it.
I hadn't worn it since I got it, but that was God. That was God's way of holding on to a special moment for me to wear it. And so that special moment was on your show.
Thank you.
Tell them a little bit about Bathroom Moment, if you don't mind.
Well, what's so interesting about Bathrobe Moments is that when I started this career 20 months ago, and I'm giving you the real deal, for real, I felt in my spirit that for the first time in all my years, that I possibly could be living within my purpose. And it was an instantaneous knowingness. It's the best way I can put it. But what started happening after, say, the third or fourth week, I think I had booked my first 2 speaking gigs, and they hadn't happened yet, but they were on the books or in the books, and I was on my way to them. So I was lying in bed, and I would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. And I started thinking, 4 o'clock in the morning until I start getting into my message, into what it is I do, would be sometimes it would take until like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So I prayed about it. And I was like, God, I think knowing me and my history, it doesn't take much for Loren to mess some stuff up. So maybe we need something. So as soon as I get home from the gym, I need something. I don't want to just sit down and put some cute little posts on Facebook or all that. I wanted something to start my message in the proper trajectory for the rest of the 24 hours. And like I said, I prayed about it, and I was sitting there in my bathrobe holding my coffee cup, and I heard his voice like I always do. And he said, well, because I was like, well, I don't have a set. I like all the stuff I'm looking at with you. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to start. I don't have any of that stuff. I don't know how to do it. And he goes, you know how to do a Facebook Live? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, get on there and do one. And I'm like, but I'm in my bathrobe. I got a cup of coffee. It's like bathrobe moments. So I did. And that's really how it happened. And it's really interesting how God works, because, I did it for the first year. Just myself, just getting on there and just kicking it with the followers, the audience. And then some attention came to it, and I signed with a television company called E360 Television. And actually, Bathrobe Moments is right now being converted into a television show, which is going to come out. That's why I started bringing guests on, because they were like, we need you to start bringing guests on so they could start monitoring all the analytics and the engagement and trying to build out what the television show was going to look like. And that's why I started bringing guests on. So it just, it just goes to show you how a little bit of something.
Yep. And now I'm hearing that, I'm like, okay, I got another reason to wear the bathrobe for the TV show.
And you're not far off. You're not far off, because they're going to choose people to come on the regular TV show from people that I've already interviewed.
Okay.
So it could definitely be. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to take to get on there. Terrance.
Yeah.
You see what I'm doing, right? You see what I'm doing.
Subliminal. Make
it rain. I'm just playing.
Right. Well, whatever it takes, then we're definitely going to make it happen.
Listen, any place I go, you're welcome to come, and vice versa.
I appreciate that. And, I really appreciate that because, again, as I said in the intro, we haven't known each other that long, but we are like-minded in the way we are going about trying to help and trying to serve. And then our roads have kind of traveled in the same circles, just in different ways. And I say that as a segue to talk about your unstoppable story, because you are an adoptee and you spent time in the foster care system. What state was that in? Was that in Illinois or was that someplace else?
Well, it originated in Michigan, but my very first foster home was actually in Raytown, Missouri, because I know, who knew that they could do that, send you across state lines, but they did, because they knew my little bad butt. I wasn't bad, but I was a smart kid. And they were afraid, because there was a battle in my adoptive family at the time. There was a lot of court appearances and whatnot about who was going to get me. And I'm just going to keep it real. It was primarily based on the check that came with me. And so after 5 or 6 months of that going on, the courts just intervened and said, you know what? None of you are going to get him. We'd rather keep him. And that's what they did. So they flew me back to Michigan from Raytown, Missouri, which is a little town right outside of Kansas City. And I began my stint, making my way through what would eventually be a total of 22 different homes between the ages of 9 through 16.
Wow. Those are pivotal years in the life of a boy turning into a young man as we're speaking with Loren Harris. LorenMichaelHarris.com is the website, doing great things. But
Michaels.
Michael,
Don't drop the S.
That S is important.
Everybody does that. I should have 2 websites to catch those ones that fall off. Right.
LorenMichaelsHarris.com. Great website, checking it out. He's telling us his unstoppable story of going through the foster care system and being an adoptee. And I mentioned that earlier because I used to work for the public guardian's office here in Cook County. So I was the one who would advocate for all the kids that were in the foster care system. So I saw the foster care system from the other side, and you lived the foster care system. But let's really dig deep for a little bit. You said and you say in this powerful video that you have all over social media that's got close to 1.3 million views so far, that you had 22 mothers over the course of your life.
I did.
Talk to us about that a little, if you will.
Okay, sure. You know, it's odd because my story is actually a little backwards, because when you say adoptee, most people think I was probably in the foster system and then was adopted.
Right.
When actually it was the reverse. The way my story was written was I was not actually adopted. Okay, but I didn't even know that any of that was going on. My birth mother became friends with my adoptive mother while she was in the hospital waiting to deliver me. She was a single mother, freshly divorced, had just migrated in the last year from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, with my other 4 siblings, older, of course. Did not know when she left that she was pregnant with me. She did not want to live in the project. She did not want to go on, aid and that sort of thing. And while she was in the hospital waiting to deliver me, my adoptive mother was the nurse, and she would talk to her. They would confide with each other. And my adoptive mother basically told her, listen, if you really want to not live in the projects and you really want to just get a job and not going to, then you need to let somebody help you. You need to care. I can help you by caring for this newborn until you get on your feet. And my mother said no. My birth mother said no, that's okay, I'll make it work. And she went home with me. But when she got home, and she actually was living in the projects at the time, and I was born on the 4th of July, so it was, I think, a rainy season that year, 1962. And this was not an adoption. This was a backdoor deal, an agreement between 2 African-American women in 1962. As my birth mother told me when I found her at age 32, you have to understand, Loren, there weren't a lot of options. For a Black woman with 4 other children with no education in 1962. So
a completely different system back then as well, right?
Very much so. So she took me home, and as fate would have it, the projects that she lived in, the roof was leaking, there was rain. Like I said, she contracted pneumonia. And when the ambulance came to take her back to the hospital, because I was a newborn, I was 6 days old, they took me with her. So now she's back at the hospital, and there again is my adoptive mom. She's like, see, I told you, blah, 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 blah. So my mother said, she was a Christian woman. She was educated. She was a registered nurse. She made sense. So we made a deal. And the deal was for me to go home with her for just a few months, or as long as it took for my birth mom to get that job, to start, her way down the road to the life she really wanted to build for all of us.
To get on her feet.
Yeah, exactly. And what happened apparently was it took a little longer than she had anticipated to put all this together. And according to her, because you got to understand, I grew up knowing 3 different stories, actually. The story that I knew up until I was 9 when my adoptive mom died, which was I knew nothing. I looked like that family. I had been in that family since a few weeks old. No one had mentioned any possibility of anything other than we're birth family, biological. And then she suddenly died. She fell on the floor in front of me one Wednesday after coming from grocery shopping. I was bringing in the groceries, and on that last round trip to the car from the kitchen, I literally tripped over her body, and she didn't recognize me. And I had no way of knowing 20 minutes later when the ambulance took her away that as I waved goodbye to that ambulance that she would never come through that door again. But so it was 1 week, 1 day short of a week from the day that she died that, we had buried her already, and you know how family comes and all that. They're all there, and everybody, I'll never forget it. I tell this all the time from the stage. Everybody in the house was, da, 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 you know how it is. Food's everywhere, kids, old people, everybody's there. And this was early in the morning, probably around 9 a.m. And they were just chatter, 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 chatter. But then the doorbell rang. And as soon as that doorbell rang, every mouth in that house stopped speaking. And they all looked at me because they knew. But no one had, whatever it took, the courage, I guess, to sit me down and tell me about what was about to transpire, which was, in walked a woman from our church, and I recognized her. I had had her son over on sleepovers and stuff, but she was a social worker, and my adoptive mom had confided in her that, this wasn't a legal adoption, and I really need to do something to start the process and this, that, and the other. But it never got to that point. It was actually in probate when she died. So it wasn't real. And I still didn't even know about it. I remember going to court once, and they were explaining things to me, but I thought every kid went through this. No one told me this is germane just to you, or this isn't the way, I just assumed every kid did this.
It was an everyday thing, right?
Everyday thing. Yeah, because I was like 7 when that started. So, the caseworker, she walked in and she didn't hold it up. She just basically said, and I was known by the name of Larry Dixon, Dixon, up until that moment, from birth to that moment. And she goes, "You're not Larry Dixon. This isn't your real family. You are a ward of the state. And here's a trash bag. We leave in about 20 minutes. Pack what you can." And I'm looking at everybody, and nobody would look at me. They were all like, And what do? I didn't think instantly about what I could take. I thought about all the things I wouldn't be able to take. What about my dog? What about saying goodbye to my best friend Scott? What about the things at school? What about Cub Scouts? What about?
To think that, and again, from the other side of the coin, I've had to be that person to pick a child up and take them into protective custody, as it was called back then, and to see your life suddenly get summed up in a paper bag or in a garbage bag. That becomes the sum total of your existence.
Yeah.
How did that feel for you at 7 years old?
Well, actually 9.
At 9.
Yeah. Well, the garbage bag thing didn't really start having an impact on me until I left the system.
Okay.
When I left the system, and albeit 44 times, because 22 trips, so going in and coming out, garbage bag, garbage bag, garbage bag, garbage bag. I just thought it was the way things were done, which is still the way it is in most cases today in the foster system. The thing that was detrimental more than the literal bag for me was once I got out on my own, aged out of the system, I had no idea, but it was a fact that I had actually taken that garbage bag now, and it had become a part of my persona. So I had it within my spirit. So, for instance, in my 20s, I reached into that garbage bag hoping to pull something of value or worth out. And pulled out low self-esteem, which led to depression, which led to multiple suicide attempts. I tried again in my 30s, thinking things had changed. I reached into that same garbage bag, and this time I pulled out a drug addiction, which would last 14 dark years. I just kept reaching in, decade after decade.
What were you hoping for when you reached in the bag? I don't think you were hoping for the addiction. I don't think you were hoping for the low self-esteem. What were you hoping for every time you reached into the bag in different times of your life?
I was hoping for what I live today.
And that is?
Something different, something that made sense, something that spoke to the fact that I was not what everything and everyone around me tried to convince me that I was, that you're not worthy, they didn't want you, you were garbage. All the things you have to understand, it's not just the system, and it's not just foster care, because there were great foster homes. There really were loving people. There were great families. I was blessed enough to go to public school, which a lot of kids in the system don't, because they move so much. They're considered remedial or special needs. But I had been in private school my whole life, so I was a couple years ahead of the norm. And I got good grades when I was in private school, so I was even further ahead. So I was allowed to go to public school every time I moved into a new home, and it was a miracle that I was never held back or anything like that. But the thing that I thought as I got older, I had begun to believe unawares that there really wasn't much value to my life. There really wasn't much value to my purpose. I don't even think honestly that I knew about purpose. Because you don't have people, this is what people don't realize. And I tell this to the kids all the time when I speak from the stage, when I do, schools and whatnot. It's really something when the things you take for granted when you're a kid, suddenly when you enter something like the foster system, there's not someone saying, come in, take a bath, it's time to get ready to get cleaned up for dinner, and this, or did you do your homework, get in here and clean up this room. No one does those things. So I had to navigate through that system based on hearing my mother do those things before this happened to me, and what would she want me to do. That's basically how I navigated. But you have to add and combine to this the many, many, many abusers that a typical kid in the foster system for even a short amount of time is destined to encounter. I encountered my first abuser my very first night in foster care. My very first night. I do a speech called The Three, and I wear a necklace that I had commissioned to be made that has 3 different stones on it. It represents the 3 little boys who were my roommates in that first foster care home, that first foster home. And it's interesting, that story, because one was the same age as I, 9, one was 7, and one was 4. And it was the 4-year-old who was the spokesman for the 3. Yeah, because unlike the 3 of us who had come into the system from some other situation, he had been born into the system because he was born in prison and then handed from one institutional setting into the arms of another. So he was like a wizened old man, and he looked old. He was 4, but he looked like an old man. I'm not kidding you, Andrew. I'll never forget it. And, he just laid it out there. He told me, you need to turn over, quit avoiding us. You don't have to be our friend. After they locked us in the room at 8 that night with a bucket in the corner to do your business in if you needed water. You're just going to wait till morning. But he said, listen, I need you to turn around and listen to me. And so, begrudgingly, I did just that. And I was shocked when I turned, because I'd seen the boys when I came in, but I didn't expect to see the smallest one being the lead. And he said, listen, and there were 3 sets of bunk beds in that room. Even though there were only 4 of us, there was room for 2 more boys. He goes, you see that mattress propped against that wall over there? And I looked, and I said, yeah. And he goes, Well, there's a hole behind that mattress. And that hole leads into a closet, a locked closet in the room next door. And outside of that door is a bedroom, and there's a locked door to that bedroom. So there's 2 keys. They're kept hidden, but one man in this house knows where they both are. And tonight, because you're the new kid, he's going to use that key to come through that first door, to get to that door, to go through that closet. He's going to come through that hole, and he's going to come in here, and he'll be coming for you. Now, I was still grieving. I had my mother's hand towel in my hand because it was one of the things that I grabbed first because it smelled like her triple lanolin lotion. And it made me feel like she was still here. And suddenly, I didn't know what to picture. It's a very hard thing to explain when someone is warning you of something that you have no way of picturing. But it didn't take long because the picture became real. And that was the beginning of when the trash bag started transitioning from the outside of my world to being an intricate part of the inside of my world.
Well, and you know what? That is a very powerful, that is a very vulnerable, that is a very I'm at a loss for words, but it's a very I appreciate you being open about it. I appreciate you really painting the picture for the audience so that they can see what you went through and as I said to you before, having been on the other side of the foster care system, it's a story that I've heard in greater detail from other kids throughout my 10 years of being in it. So I know the story to be real, and I'm sorry you had to go through it. But, as we both know, sometimes you've got to go through to grow through. And the person you are today is an evolution of the things that you had to go through.
Yeah.
And the person you are today is a person who now goes back and forth from high school to elementary school to middle school, telling the story to the youth, not to bring them down, but to lift them up, not to have them think that there's no better life for them, but to indeed let them know that even in the hardest times, they can be unstoppable and live life on the next level.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this, and this is what I ask of all my guests, but you're clearly coming from a different vein than some of the other guests. What does it mean to you when I say the word unstoppable?
That's an easy one to answer. It kind of goes back to the 3 boys. I realized that I would never stop trying to make sense of all of it. Not just what happened with me, but what happened to many of the kids that I crossed paths with, and still today happens to kids all over this country and other countries. But those 3, I knew I couldn't stop. I had to find purpose, justification in it all, answers. When I finished high school, I immediately, I was blessed enough, I had auditioned for a group that came through my high school the last week of school called Up With People. And I auditioned and I got in, and so I left immediately after graduation a month later and traveled with Up With People. That's where the music began for me. They made me a soloist, and that was the start of that career for me. But when I turned 21, I reached back, summoned some courage from somewhere, and reached over my shoulder to the life I'd lived, and found my caseworker who had been with me when I transitioned and aged out of the system. And I told her I wanted to find those 3 boys. because so many times over the years, we were only together 3 or 4 months, but so many times over the years, leading out of the system and beyond, I had thought about them so much, especially the youngest one, Andrew, who the 4-year-old, because of how much they had given me to hold on to, and that I know for a fact brought me through many, many trying times. And she told me, well, give me some time. I'll see what I can do. And she went back into my file and found out who was in that home with me. And it took her about 2 months. And she contacted me. And I remember the day when Ann, her name is Ann Hasselbaum, and she called me and she said, well, I found him. And I'm getting excited. And she says, well, the first one, which was the one who was my age, she goes, he actually died at 14 in a high-speed police chase because he had stolen the family's vehicle that he was in their home because of the abusive father. He was running away, and he had been beaten about his head and face so badly that his eyes were swelling at an enormous rate while he was trying to drive. And of course, he's 14, he doesn't have a license. And he crashed, and that was the end of him. And then she said, then she went to the next one, the 7-year-old, and he just apparently disappeared off a playground, never was heard of again. So they presumed him dead. And then she got to Andrew, the 4-year-old, and she goes, his is probably the most tragic of all because it shouldn't have happened. That he was 2 days short of his 6th birthday. And the home that he lived in, it was finally a beautiful home with beautiful people. They were sure that he had found his forever home. He had never had one. And they had a shed in their backyard. And apparently somebody had escaped from the local jail and was hiding in that shed. And that was the shed where they kept the gardening equipment and the kids, like big wheels and that sort of thing. And he was 5 then, they said. And he went out there. No. Must have been 6 because he was he was 5, almost 6. She said, so close to being 6. And anyway, this person, he startled him when he went in there, and they found him strangled with a garden hose, and the riding lawnmower was what was covering his body. And so instantly, I had a choice to either deal with what is known as survivor's guilt of some sort, or to make each of their lives matter. And I didn't know it then, but I used to picture doing what I do today. I didn't know what you called it. I didn't see the lights and the stages and all the things that I have around me now that have come as a result of it. But I knew that I would forever tell this story. I knew not to hide it under a bushel, no. That I was going to let it shine. And that's how I got here. I used to talk about them through my life and talk to myself or talk to them and tell them that I was going to live for all of us. That I was going to live for all of us. And that's what made me unstoppable. I would have quit so many times. I tried. I probably had 7 or 8 suicide attempts over the course of my life, and probably hundreds of moments in between that would have qualified, rightfully so, but I just didn't do it, thank God. But their message made me unstoppable.
I love it. And I'm so glad that you didn't stop.
Right.
Talking to Loren Harris here on the Unstoppable Stories show with Terrance Leftridge. Thank you guys who are joining in. Justin Cummings says, you never know when your message will save that one person that needs saving. And that is so true. And what you said makes so much sense. And I'm so glad that you recognize that you couldn't be stopped. And you shouldn't be stopped telling this story, because you now are carrying the legacy for the other 3. The other 3 aren't here to tell their story. but thank God you are. And
Right.
he always puts us in a situation where his will can be done and our purpose can be fulfilled, even if it isn't the most happiest of purposes. You
Right.
know, I know I can see and I can hear in your voice that it still touches you, and it probably takes you back to that day every time.
Always will.
Story. But
It always will.
I love the courage that you continue to bring out by telling that story. So now let's flip it a little bit and let's talk about when you tell that story now. Now, 5 decades later, you're talking to kids across the country and you're telling that story, but now you're telling them about the power that they have inside of them. And you've got this special program that you're going to be doing later on this year called The Power of We. So let's touch upon that a little bit. As how are you turning this message of what you went through, what you've grown through, into a message that now helps others, young people across the country, and help them recognize that the power that they have inside of them?
Well, basically, the power of we is a mindset. It is a movement. Right now, in my world, it's a theory. And until September 20th, when those of us who show up to make this happen in a big way prove this theory to the world, that's what it is. But I have inside my spirit, deep in my heart, a knowingness that when we come together and we share our stories, that's when real things happen, real change. The needle can really move. I find it just incomprehensible that children are still transitioning between foster homes with their belongings in trash bags. And if that something that blatant, that obvious, that simple to fix is still there and prominent, so must be the deep-seated problems in a lot of things that I dealt with and we've all dealt with. So the power of we is because, you know, I speak to corporate, I speak on regular stages with influencers and marketers and things like that. But the most joy in my world of speaking comes from the kids. But what I find so devastating for me and for them is that, you know, when I was coming through and I was going through what I had to go through, I could walk down the street, even if it was from school to a foster home or a group home. I could walk home and not have to worry about sex trafficking, gang violence, or gang recruiters. I call them street merchants, street recruiters. You know, the ones who these kids have to pass through these different zones, if you will, where they tell me they're afraid to give the people eye contact, and they're afraid not to. Because if you give them eye contact, that shows weakness and they think you're interested. If you don't, they jump in front of you and, oh, you think you're going to walk through here and act like you don't hear me? I'll do this to you and I'll do that to you, just to get to the front of their school door. And, you know, I just spoke to, this is a new one. And, you know, we just shot a couple weeks ago our sponsorship video. And I was talking to some kids down in the Inglewood area who these kids have done so much. A lot of them are going to Ivy League schools on full rides. And so I'm like all excited. We just shot this video and I'm like, hey, what is the number one thing that you're excited about for the summer? And over half of the kids said, I can't get excited yet. I can't get excited about Georgetown until I close my eyes in my dorm room.
Right.
First night in Georgetown. I'm more concerned about living through the summer.
And, you know, that was something that I felt when I was growing up. And it's just amazing how we haven't solved that problem, and we're not going to solve that problem on this podcast either. But I remember when I was 16, when I was in high school, living in the Wild Wild Hundreds, the Roseland area of Chicago. Still lived here now, but it was. We didn't think we'd make it to our 16th birthday because there was killing then, not to the rate that it is today, but it was still prevalent. But we didn't have to worry about drive-by shootings. We had to worry about, if we ran into the dope man on the corner because that was his corner and he was always recruiting.
Right.
But now you could be sitting on your porch 1 second, dead the next. You could be laying on the couch in your living room 1 second, next second, dead. You could be walking from one class to the next class, from your algebra class to your PE class.
Right.
And between the steps to those two rooms, 5, 6, 20 different people could die in those steps.
Right.
So I really, as much as it has been something that has been going on all our life, it is just out of this world right now. And that's why I think what you're doing right now is so powerful, to show them something different, to continue to show them the possibilities. So what are some of the things that you hope to come out of the Power of We on September 20th?
Well, a number of things. For the kids, I want them to come there and experience a VIP day of treatment. As soon as they walk through the gates, first of all, it's at the beautiful Stan Mansion in Logan Square, which is a real mansion, all 3.5 stories of it, recently returned to its splendor from the 1920s. And Chera Stan, the owner, is just a fabulous woman, and she's invited us in and really rolled out the red carpet, literally. So when these kids come through the wrought iron gates, they're going to walk down a red carpet. There's going to be paparazzi on both sides. When they go into the marble foyer inside the mansion, they see all of the life-size banners of all the speakers on both sides of the hallway. The lower ballroom will be filled with vendors, up to 50 vendors we can hold in there. It's over 3,000 square feet. And when you go upstairs, they'll register. They'll pick up their swag bags filled with all these great things. Take photos in front of the step and repeat, go into the main ballroom where they will sit in box seats on both sides of the main floor. And the first 5 rows of the floor are all of our VIPs, which are our youth leaders, and banners of all the supporters from around the country, around the city, that support them, not just your big corporate sponsors, but we want grassroots. We want Ed's Liquor Store. We want the kid that doesn't believe that, Ruby's Pancake House or right. Joella's Cleaners, sees them. Will see that, oh, wow, that's from my hood. That's from my neighborhood. And they're supporting me. It's not just, these big logos that don't mean anything to me. They're going to sit and they're going to hear 12 powerful speakers from all over the world, and that are going to tell. When I chose these speakers, I asked each one when I heard their stories, I said, okay, tell me about that tipping point. When you had to make that choice, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. Right. What was that thing, that feeling, that sound, that voice, that spirit? What was it? If you had to give it one word, what would that power word be? What was your superpower? And so they started rattling them off. Power of leadership, power of adversity, the power of choice, power of tranquility, the power of love, on and on. And so each one of them, when you think about it, they each could have chosen from millions of words.
Yes.
But they chose that one. And so they're going to get up and they're going to share, not just with these kids, but with the 250 or so regular people, on the main floor. Because here's what I want. I want these kids to, of course, hear and experience these dynamic speakers. But I want them to be sitting right next to people from the community. Whether they're writers, artists, singers, business owners, wonderful moms and dads, whatever it is they do, postal workers, whatever it is you do.
Yeah.
I want them to see people that see them and be able to kick it. Everybody gets catered lunch, so you don't have to leave. Let's just sit here and fellowship and talk to each other.
Yes.
And encourage others.
I love the fact that with all those different people in that room from all different walks of life, all different types of careers, all different types of makeup, that now these kids will probably, some of them for the first time, be able to see something different that they've never seen before. Yeah. It's so true that you can't be what you haven't seen. And for a lot of our children, not just here in the Chicagoland area, but across the country, even across the world, they may be only seeing one or two different things in their lifetime.
Right.
They may be only seen drugs and basketball. They may be only seeing death and the prison system. They haven't seen that somebody who looks like them can be a doctor, can be a lawyer, can be a writer, can just be a family, a parent that has two parents in the same house. So you are creating possibilities for these 200 individuals that are going to be in that room on September 20th. And I just love that.
Well, and Terrance, I'm going to tell you something else. Here's what people don't realize is going to happen that day. And this day, September 20th, is a template event. We're doing it, we're taking our time, and we're building it properly so that it can move around this country and hopefully around the world. Here's why. I'm bringing in 250 kids from Chicago, Gary, and Benton Harbor, Michigan's hardest hit areas, mainly African-American and Hispanic. But I'm bringing in also people on that floor, inviting anybody, because here's what's happening. 22 school shootings since January, 22 school shootings. And trust me, not one of those happened at a school that was predominantly comprised of kids of color.
Yes.
So the gap is closing. In the Caucasian, the white areas, this is what's happening. Kids are still dying.
Yes.
Kids are still afraid that they're not going to make it to pomp and circumstance time. And that's not right for any kid of any color. And you know what? Every time one of those school shootings happens, they say mental health, mental health, mental health. Well, we all have problems with mental health. When you can't control your anger, when you get depressed and don't want to get out of bed, all kinds of things. Everything is mental health. But you know what? I don't want to point at mental health. I want to expose and uplift mental wealth. Let's talk about what's right in there. And this society, our world has never done anything positive by exploiting our differences. We have always done stuff better when we highlight and uplift and edify what our similarities are. And that's what we stands for. We is not this mindset like here in my coaching. When I tell people this, I can't stand this mindset of up and down. We're in competition with each other. Climb the ladder to success. This ladder is designed for people who want to give everything that they believe in and are built and created to do to the building of other people's dreams. You need to take this ladder and take it from here and turn it like this. And keep your feet on the ground, because none of us is in any kind of competition with any other human being. We're in competition with one competitor, and that's time. Time has won every round. It has beat every human since the beginning of time. No one has ever outlived time except for Jesus.
Right.
And so I'm just saying, it is time for us to come together. We can't blame everything on things like mental health. We cannot blame things on federal funding or budget cuts, state level, local municipalities and budget cuts. It is because we are not above or below each other. We're supposed to be beside each other.
And the beautiful thing about it is all those things that we say hold us back is something that all we need to do is to give a little bit of what you just said we've never been able to beat, and that's time. if we invested a little bit of our time into our youth, into what is possible as opposed to what is not possible, think how much farther we could be. And so you are investing your time as well as the time of the other speakers, as well as you're putting your money where your mouth is to make this a phenomenal event on September 20th. Yeah. Tell them how they can get involved, because you already saw Justin said that he would like to volunteer in some way. So what do you need right now from from our audience to help you as far as the Power of We Symposium is concerned?
Oh, absolutely. We have, that's the thing about we. You can use anyone.
Yes.
To help. Volunteers, vendors, if you have a small business or you have a book or anything where if you had a kiosk or a table, there would be people moving in. You know, that ballroom is 3,000 square feet. It's open from 8:30 in the morning until 10:30 at night. People will be coming and going. There you are. If you want to be a sponsor, you can sponsor all the way from $10,000 all the way down to $25. And you go to Eventbrite and you simply search for the Power of We Symposium Chicago, and it'll come up and it'll tell you all of the different things. Or you can hit me up on my social media, which is Facebook. Loren Michaels Harris is my professional page, or Loren Harris, which is my Facebook page. You can go through Terrance and he can put you in touch with me.
Oh, most definitely.
You know, or you can just simply go to the powerofwesymposium.com. Not just powerofwesymposium.com. You'll find everything you need there, or go to lorenmichaelsharris.com and get at me there. And because, you know, there's that. Thank you for putting that up there. The powerofwesymposium.com. And, you know, so sponsors, $1,000 brings 4 kids in for this day. That's from morning till evening. Then after the kids go home at 6:30, there's a 2-hour break. Then you come back and we have great entertainment that night. One of Chicago's finest. I'm just going to tell you this. She was on American Idol and she's going to kill it. We've got some 501(c)(3)s, some nonprofits from around this country where little people that you'd never think are doing things today. They're everything from the Underground Railroad going into other countries and stealing or buying back those kids that have been taken and traded into sex trafficking. The Feed a Billion organization who have set their mission as far as feeding 1 billion people before 2020, and they're up to over 3.5 million people being fed. Journey's Dream, to work with people who are told they have mental illnesses just so that they can feed into the what do you call it? Prescription world. Here, take this. People who I'm telling you, you'd be shocked. I think anything that saves our resources, which are our young people.
Yes.
I believe that every time we lose one of them, we lose a cure for this, a cure for that. Everything that they want. How come they can't find a cure for cancer? Because the kids that have held that secret have been killed. We don't know how many times.
Yes.
That's how I choose to look at it. And until we keep them alive, we won't know that isn't the case.
Well, I am so glad that you're doing your part to help this, the Power of We Symposium, September 20th, here at the Stan Mansion here in Chicago. You know what?
Going down.
Keep this up, and we're going to keep the website up, and I'm going to share it on my link. And as we get closer to the event, I am going to invite you back on the show so we can continue to talk about this. My platform is your platform for this needy cause. You know, we all can't do everything, but each one of us can do something. And if each one of us does something, then we will have that power. And
that's right.
I look to you. I'm glad that you've picked up the mantle. I'm glad that Loren Michaels Harris is doing this phenomenal thing here in Chicago with greater sights in mind. This is just the beginning. This is not the end. This is the blueprint, but this is not the final structure. So you guys stay tuned.
And I want to say this before we go to all of the people here in Chicagoland. I promise you this. I tell everybody we've been, they're beckoning from 2 other states already, but I tell them from the beginning, listen, Power of We Symposium will visit you, but it'll always live in Chicago. Because I'm tired of them all they do. There's kids that go off to school every year. I talk to them, I mentor them, and they get blamed for everything that goes wrong in their dorms. They get called every kind of name as they walk through these great walls and halls of these education, these colleges and stuff, simply because of where they're from. That's wrong. That's wrong. And no wonder they don't want to bring everything they learn back to their community, because they want to get as far away as possible, because it's, and that's not our fault. That's the media's fault. But how do we turn it around? That's how we turn it around. If we don't, they're going to keep doing what they've been doing.
Well, we here at the Unstoppable Story Show, we're going to use our media platform to continue to promote this positive cause. The Power of We Symposium with Loren Harris on September 20th, 2018 at the Stan Mansion. You're going to go to powerofwesymposium.com to get all the details, or go to LorenMichaelsHarris.com to get those details. Either one of those websites is going to give you that great information. But, we could talk about this forever, but unfortunately the show's only an hour. So again, will you honor me and be a guest on the show as we get closer to the event in September, Loren?
Absolutely. You betcha. Thank you so much for the invite.
I appreciate that. So give us the last word as we roll out. What's the last thing you want our audience to know, either about Loren Harris or the Power of We Symposium?
Well, it's just about us, you guys. This is what I want you. This is for everybody. If the entire world would just remember one thing, and that is, it's about the truth. The truth is the only thing in this universe that never changes, and it will never change on you. So find your story, look over your shoulder, and share your truths with the rest of the world, so that we don't walk around holding our heads, afraid to tell every piece of our story. When you change your truth, you change your story into a version. Versions wither on the vine. Versions aren't the kind of books that are leather bound and held up as classics through the ages. They're dime store novels that'll be sold at somebody's garage sale. That's not what you want. And how do we prove this theory of the power of we? By showing up, by being we. Separately, we can do some things, but together, we can do great things. And I promise you that.
Absolutely. Loren Harris, you guys, definitely thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time here on the Unstoppable Story Show. Again, the Power of We Symposium here, September 20th, 2018, the Stan Mansion here in Chicago. Go to powerofwesymposium.com to get more information.
Now.
Yeah.
Look, that viral video on Goldcast, Chicago, get their tickets now. They'll be standing outside looking through the window.
Right, you're gonna be putting a cone up to the
concrete in there.
What's going on the inside. So, Loren, as I drop you back down to get the rest of your pig's feet, because I got more guests coming in tomorrow.
Okay,
just put your information down there, and so how they can get in contact with you. Okay,
I will.
And as always, thank you, Loren, for being the unstoppable force that you are in your world, using your platform, using your voice to not only change lives, but to save lives. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. That was Loren Harris, the Power of We Symposium. Again, go to powerofwesymposium.com where you can get more information about the event on September 20th here in Chicago. So I just want to leave you guys with this as we end another episode of the Unstoppable Story Show. I thank Loren for being transparent. I thank Loren for being vulnerable. I thank Loren for telling a story that a lot of people wouldn't be courageous enough to tell. But I thank Loren because he recognized that he had to tell the story not for his own mental health, but for the children's coming up mental wealth. You see, when you can change the way you think about the mental game, you can change where you go. You can change your trajectory. You can change your attitude, and you change your altitude. Too many of our kids are stuck here thinking that this is it because no one else has shared the story of how they came from where these kids are now, and they've been able to make it through, and they've been able to live their unstoppable life. Too many of us, we climb that ladder of success, and we don't want to look back down and tell the other people how we made it. Or we just want them to see the mated version, but we don't want them to see what is behind the mask. The guilt, the shame, the abuse, the neglect. It's hard to tell that story. It's easy to smile and be this way, but it's hard to be transparent and be vulnerable. But if anybody who's watching the Unstoppable Stories know, it's through that vulnerability, it's through that transparency, it's through talking about what you went through to where you are now that's going to help somebody that still has yet to go through, that still is looking to come through. And the only thing that's going to bring them through is knowing that because you made it, they can make it too. They say teamwork makes the dream work, and together, everyone achieves more. So I implore you to get involved and be a part of this Power of We symposium in September. And together, each one of us will achieve more for the lives of our children, because our children, they are the future. And there's that child that's going to cure cancer because you got involved. There's that child that's going to be the next president because you got involved. There's that child that may be one day sitting in this chair where I am, or sitting in that chair where Loren was, doing the exact same thing because he saw us do it today. What you do today will definitely make the difference in the lives of our future, our children. Well, that's our time. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, I want you to connect with me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all under Unstoppable Coaching, or you can go to my website at unstoppablecoaching.com. And I invite you to pick up the latest book, the You Are Unstoppable, Moving from Past to Purpose. Myself and 6 phenomenal authors telling their story, just like Loren did today, of how they have overcome their past and they are walking firmly in their purpose. I invite you to go get a copy of that book today by going to my website, unstoppablecoaching.com. Click on the store tab and you can go to our books. I've got all my books there on the page. You can order right now. But really, if you want to learn how to move from your past and walk firmly in your purpose so that you can now be part of the Power of We, start right here by ordering your book right now. And wherever you are in the world today, don't just make it a great day. Go out and help somebody have an unstoppable day. Take care.